Hey you and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old one, we're going to talk about Laura Ackerson and her ex-musician, Grant Hayes. Now here's a treat for your eardrums.
She was once in love with me. We were always together, and in the nighttime we'd go outside, look up at the stars, look up at the stars. Never rain, unless we were all wrapped up.
Grant Hayes had been in a relationship with Laura Ackerson. They would have 2 kids together, and this would then develop into a nasty custody battle. And then Grant married Amanda Hayes, who, as much as, Grant didn't like Laura, Amanda really didn't like her. So let's have a go. This story takes us all the way back to the distant, foggy year of 2011 in North Carolina. Laura Ackerson was finalizing a difficult custody battle for her 2 children with ex-boyfriend Grant Hayes, the course of which led to Laura only having her 2 children on weekends, Grant having them for the rest of the week. This had been a temporary arrangement for over a year, as both Laura and Grant had to undergo psychological evaluation. Grant claimed that Laura had mental health issues. Laura claimed Grant had substance abuse problems. The court sided with Grant for one reason or another. Laura had actually caught Grant's eye at one of his gigs back in 2006. Laura and Grant started a relationship in 2007. They married, maybe, depending on differing sources, but they would end up having 2 kids together. Over those relatively short 3 years, things would get rockier and rockier, resulting in a custody battle between the 2 in 2010. The same year of 2010, 34-year-old Grant Hayes married another woman, 46-year-old Amanda Smith, who he had met the year before. He had met her in 2009, by the way, when he was still with Laura. They had met on the island of St. John in the US Virgin Islands. Amanda was a failed actress, womp womp, being in the 2004 Stepford Wives movie. Sure, that's her there? Question mark. And an appearance in The Sopranos, allegedly, but I could find jack shit about that. Grant himself was a struggling singer-songwriter.
Alright. Okay.
Struggling being the key word there.
Alright guys, we're bringing up a special performer, special musician. I need everybody to bring down the house for this man. Everybody get a warm welcome for Mr. Grant Hayes!
I'm waiting for her to close the door.
Okay. Alright.
So this is really great to be here with you.
Thank you.
Grant Hayes,
Yeah.
singer, songwriter, musician, and artist.
Yes.
Pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, Hollis.
Now, Grant had some, unusual beliefs, thought to be, drug-induced. He was mad for the, synthetic hallucinogens. Who is? Not me, that is. Say no to drugs, kids. I did say earlier that Laura claimed, during the custody battle that he had substance abuse issues, and if these beliefs, are true, then she was right. For example, when Laura and Grant were, together, he attempted to indoctrinate her into believing he was a time traveler, and that beings from other planets followed him around and he would shoot the shit with them, as you do. He also claimed that those beings were the same people who ran the United States.
Alan.
Reptilians. Up to no good as usual. He erroneously believed the world would end on December 31st, 2012. Simple mistake to make. And that he needed to make a shitload of money to make it onto one of those alien spaceships so he could get the hell out of Earth before we're all blown to bits. Musician is probably not the way to go. Be a doctor. Anyways, together, Grant and Amanda lived in Raleigh, and Amanda would have a daughter to Grant in 2011.
Stole my heart. You were all the right right choices.
Amanda didn't like Laura for obvious reasons, probably because Laura wasn't too keen on the whole reptilian shite. And also the fact that, I guess this is probably more important, that Laura, being in a custody battle with her husband Grant, and Amanda would get, Grant's side of the story. His side of the story being that Laura's crazy. She's the crazy one. However, come 2011, 27-year-old Laura Ackerson was pretty confident that at the very least she would share custody of her kids, get them more than just on weekends. And she was also planning on starting not one, but two businesses related to the old droid graphic design. On the 12th of July 2011, Laura got an email from Grant. At this time, Laura lived in Kinston, Grant in Raleigh. The email was asking her if she wanted to visit her kids. Now this was a Wednesday, and the kind of results of the custody hearing, or the outcome of the custody hearing, wouldn't be for another month, in August. But Laura was like, hey, maybe the writing's on the wall. She was pretty confident she would get her kids, so she was like, hey, okay, I'll go visit them. It's the middle of the week, which was usually when she didn't get to see them. The next day, the 13th of July, she left Kinston and began her drive to Raleigh to see her children. A journey of about an hour and a half. She texted Grant at 4:12 p.m. saying, "I'm leaving the Wilson area now. Where will you be in an hour and a half?" She then called him about 45 minutes later. And that was the last thing we know. That night at 9 p.m. she missed a call from her business partner, which is the first red flag. As the next few days rolled over, no one heard anything from her. She was reported missing on the 15th of July, 2 days after she had last been heard from.
The mystery continues to deepen into the disappearance of a young mother whose car was located in Raleigh yesterday. Laura Jean Ackerson is from Kinston, but was last seen here a week ago. Her car turned up at an apartment complex in North Raleigh early Wednesday morning. Friends and family are growing more and more concerned that something has happened to her. Amanda Lamb was in Kinston today and joins us now with how people are reacting to this disappearance. Amanda?
David, people I talked to say Laura Jean Ackerson would never leave her two sons. They also say she had lost touch with a lot of family members and friends in recent years, partially because of her relationship with the father of her boys, a relationship that in recent months had turned volatile, they say. She was last seen on July 13th and was reported missing on July 15th after she failed to pick up her children from their father, Grant Hayes, in Raleigh. Family and friends say Ackerson and Hayes, who is an aspiring musician, had a volatile relationship and were fighting over the custody of their children. Ackerson's car was found in the Camden Crest Apartments on Summit Manor Lane early Wednesday morning. Raleigh police are examining it for clues. They say so far there's no evidence of foul play in Ackerson's disappearance.
So with her reported missing, the police went to Grant and Amanda's on the 20th of July because they knew, she'd gone there to see her kids. Another thing was that a few months prior to her disappearance, she had said to her lawyer, the lawyer, representing her in the custody battle, that she was worried for her safety. So the police arrived at Grant's apartment on the 20th and noticed bleach. Doing the old deep clean, huh? I mean, this is basically, only an idiot wouldn't notice something was amiss, because besides the smell of cleaning agent, missing from the apartment was a shower curtain, Hoover, a few rugs. Like, what else are you gonna do with those things? Those yolks were found in the dumpster outside. Inside that dumpster was also a glove with Laura's DNA on it. However, in the apartment, which was empty of occupants at this stage, Grant and Amanda were nowhere to be seen, they did find a note. Written on the note was that Laura agreed to give full custody of her kids to ex-Grant in exchange for $25,000. The children she had just been, through a year-long custody battle for, one which undoubtedly cost her a lot more than $25,000. So at this stage, the smell of bullshit was more overpowering than the smell of bleach. Written in the apartment, they also found lyrics to a song called Man Killer, about the first person killing of a woman by making her bleed and by strangulation, including the lyrics, "Give in to me, I want it all. I want your scream, I want your crawl. I'll make you bleed. I'm not the one to make you scream, I'm just the one to make you bleed. Don't raise your arms, you can't stop me. I'll put my hands on your throat and squeeze. Another surefire hit for Grant Hayes. No diggity, no doubt. It was then that things became pretty clear. However, the manner in which they happened didn't. And so, the police began tracing the movements of Grant and Amanda from the 13th of July, the day Laura Ackerson vanished. They learnt, right, that in the wee hours of July 14th, old Grant Hayes decided to pay a visit to Walmart and Target. In those shops he bought, well, what do you think? How about a saw, blades, trash bags, goggles, gloves, tape, etc, etc. The classics. That same morning of the 14th of July, Amanda called her daughter, she had one from a previous relationship, asking her to take the kids out for the day. Just get them out of the house. Then, on the 16th of July, Grant bought ice and coolers and also rented a U-Haul trailer. Doing a bit of moving? Well, moving something. While he was yapping away to the U-Haul staffer, he said he was going on down to Texas, Richmond specifically. A fair 18 hours drive. At that same time, Amanda told her daughter that herself, Grant and the kids were also going on down to Texas to visit Amanda's sister, who lived there. And so, they arrived in the big ol' state on the morning of the 18th of July. So driving pretty non-stop, must have been in a rush, huh? On the 19th of July, Grant did a bit more of the old shopping at the old Home Depot, where he bought gloves and a bottle of industrial hydrochloric acid. On the evening of the 19th of July, Grant and Amanda, who genuinely were at Amanda's sister's place by the way, and Amanda's sister, just by chance, she happened to live near Oyster Creek. This narrow little creek, filled with alligators. And Grant and Amanda asked her sister if they could borrow her boat. They took the boat out into the creek, and well, the Hayes returned to Raleigh on the 20th of July, returned to their third floor apartment to find the police enjoying the smell of bleach. The police, eventually tracking all of this, on the 24th of July began searching that creek. They found decomposed and dismembered body parts. The remains of Laura Ackerson. The official cause of death was homicide by undetermined means. However, it's believed that it was most likely asphyxiation and possibly blunt force trauma to the neck. Surveillance footage would also be obtained, showing Amanda dumping bottles of acid near her sister's home. On the 25th of July, 13 days after Laura Ackerson vanished, both Grant and Amanda Hayes were charged with first-degree murder.
Raleigh police arrived in Fort Bend County, Texas yesterday. It appears their conversations with Amanda Hayes' sisters living in Richmond, Texas led them to a creek across from her house. Raleigh detectives believe that the creek held some answers in the disappearance of Laura Jean Ackerson.
It's believed that the actual homicide occurred in North Carolina, where the suspects evidently purchased some ice chest, dismembered the body, placed it in the ice chest, acquired a U-Haul trailer, put the ice chest in the trailer and transported her through several states to Fort Bend County, where they tossed her remains into Oyster Creek.
Now, Sheriff Brady says detectives have recovered several ice chests on the property owned by Amanda Hayes' sister, but at this point there's no indication that Hayes' sister knew what the couple was doing. Brady says that Grant and Amanda Hayes visited her sister in Richmond, Texas last Monday and Tuesday and then returned here to North Carolina. He says based on his information, Grant Hayes used a boat in order to dump the remains in that creek. He says Amanda Hayes was present when the remains were put in the creek. Brady says the body was severed into multiple pieces. At this point, he says dive teams have recovered 3 sections of the body amounting to about 60% of the remains. The sheriff says that this is the most gruesome scene that he has ever seen in his more than 30 years of law enforcement.
As the sun rose over Kinston, North Carolina on July 13th of 2011, Laura Ackerson woke up excited. For once, things were going her way. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case that is so calculated, so malignant, and so destructive that Laura Ackerson disappears off the face of the earth for 11 days after she goes to Grant Hayes' apartment.
The prosecution came to the theory that, well, I'm sure you came to it too. Grant and Amanda dismembered Laura Ackerson when they lured her to their apartment in Raleigh. Then they dumped her remains into ice coolers, put them in the U-Haul truck, and got rid of them in a creek in Texas, far enough from North Carolina that they thought no one would ever, find her. They had initially tried to dissolve her remains with acid, and when they realized that acid wasn't doing the job, they hoped the alligators would get rid of any trace of her. Grant and Amanda were tried separately. During the trial, a lot of emails between the Hayeses and Laura were shown, and they were not on good terms at all, obviously. In one email, Laura wrote to Amanda, "I would like to address the attitude you have toward me in front of my children, though. I understand that Grant has probably told you I am the worst person in the world, among whatever else was useful for him to say in that moment. Even at one point, Grant kept emailing Laura, even after she was dead, basically having a go at her for going dark on him and not responding to his messages. He would say he had nothing more to say to her." Which is true. I mean, seriously, we are trying to reach a settlement and you go dark on me after agreeing to, shall I say, certain terms. Yes, real fucked up. I have nothing more to say to you until I hear from your attorney. And that note about Laura giving up her kids for $25,000, that was signed by her. Well, the thing is, it actually seemed like it could have been signed by her. It seemed to match her handwriting, but the comparison guy couldn't get it like 100% accuracy. So, under duress or simply forged. I mean, the final custody hearing was only a month away from when Laura vanished. And she was pretty confident that she would at least get shared, if not full custody of her kids, so that's your motive right there. The custody battle had cost Grant $85,000. It seemed like he would lose, and himself and Amanda were broke. Amanda's sizable inheritance was gone, and they'd pawned some of her heirloom jewellery for cash. Grant and Amanda wanted Laura out of the picture permanently, so they could move the children to New York, where Grant could pursue his music career. This one. So all that, combined with the note, seemed to indicate a pretty well thought out, premeditated plan to get rid of her. Kind of. During Grant's trial, a witness also came forward. One Pablo Trinidad. He testified that in July 2011, he was being held in the same detention center that Grant was in. And Grant's case came on the news. A few inmates saw that and, well, decided they wanted to beat the piss out of Grant. Pablo diffused the situation, and not long after, Grant decided to tell Pablo, in return for defending him I guess, that he called Laura and lured her to his apartment under the false pretenses of settling the custody dispute. He then subdued her with Amanda's help, strangled her, and drove out of state to dispose of the body.
What did he tell you about the case?
He told me that she was an unfit mother. That they've been having a custody battle for some years now, going back and forth, and that she was soliciting herself on the internet. That she continuously asked for money, and he was just tired of going back and forth with that. So he said that he placed the call to her and lured her to his apartment, and that's when him and his wife subdued her and strangled her. Later on, after that, that's when they dismembered the body, and afterwards they took her on a road trip and out of state, out of town, and got rid of the body. And he called under the false pretenses that him and her was going to resolve the ongoing custody battle they had, and that's why she came over there to talk to him about to get the custody thing they had going on resolved.
Grant pled not guilty. His defense was going with, well, the usual. It was Amanda who, she was sick of that shit, and she just killed her, and he just helped his dear wife cover it up.
It was Amanda's plan, because Amanda was responsible for killing Laura.
Welp, Grant was found guilty, and in 2014 he was sentenced to life without parole. At Amanda's trial, the prosecution said that Amanda was jealous and angry at Laura and wanted her out of the picture so she could live her life with Grant and the children. However, the defense said that Amanda didn't even know Grant had killed Laura until after the fact.
Amanda, did you kill Laura Ackerson?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you help Grant kill Laura Ackerson?
I absolutely did not.
Were you present when Grant killed Laura Ackerson?
No, sir, I was not.
Did you know that Laura had died before you got to Texas?
No, sir.
And was then threatened into helping him get rid of any evidence. The defense said that Grant told Amanda he'd kill her, and manipulated her into doing what he needed her to do. Amanda was found guilty of second-degree murder, and sentenced to 13 to 16 years in prison. After that, she was also tried in Texas, charged with illegally disposing of a dead body. I suppose it's, not terribly illegal to try and dissolve someone's remains in acid and then dump them in a creek full of alligators, I guess. She got an extra 20 years for that one. And so ends the case of Laura Ackerson and what happened to her. A pretty unhappy ending for everybody involved, although Grant and Amanda deserved it. Unfortunately for Grant, the world didn't end in 2012. So, he couldn't escape in a spaceship or whatever. Although I don't think they'd have much use for him. In 2014, Amanda and Grant divorced. Womp womp. And his appeal was denied in 2015. So, great. Grant is lucky though, because in prison, he'll still have Amanda. Amanda hug and kiss. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. I will see you as always real soon in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye out.